Welcome everyone to another episode of ELPA podcast. We call it Small Steps, Big Changes series, building a healthier liver through everyday habits with ELPA, where we are addressing importance of daily healthy habits and healthy lifestyle to essentially empower our community with knowledge, motivation, and to support each other along the way. As you may know, the liver is an incredible organ. It processes almost everything that we eat, we drink, and therefore it's fair to say that nutrition plays a huge role in the health of our liver. For those managing conditions like MASL and MASH, this connection becomes even more critical. And these conditions can often be managed and sometimes even reversed throughout the right dietary and lifestyle choices. So today I'm extremely happy to welcome in our podcast Dr. Stan Driessen from Amsterdam. Hello Stan, welcome.
Yes. Hi Veronica.
How are you?
Yeah, really good. So nice to be here. Really excited to be in Brussels. My first time over here, but really enjoying it. And it's really cool to be able to talk about the big role that nutrition plays in liver health. And today I'd really like to elaborate on how small steps can make really big changes in overall liver health of patients with liver diseases and patients about to develop liver diseases. So thank you.
But Stan, before we dive into the conversation, I would just like to present you a little bit more. So you are indeed a medical doctor based in Amsterdam, and you are currently finalizing your PhD project.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true.
Tell us a little bit more what it is about in very easy to understand language.
Yeah, the thing I'm focusing most on currently is the implementation of care paths for liver disease. So what you see is that we would love to be better able to detect advanced liver diseases in the general population, and what we want to do is try to see how well non-invasive tests perform in this population. So we know from several studies already that non-invasive tests without damaging the patient are really easy in detecting liver disease, but we don't know that well how well they will perform if actually implemented in practice. So that's what I'm busy working with.
So in the near future, we are expecting some nice presentation and results.
I hope so, yeah.
Okay, Stan, so let's start. Let's maybe go with the big picture, big question. The liver processes, as we said, majority of things that we consume, that we eat and drink.
Yeah.
So again, how the nutrition is important for the health of our liver. Why nutrition is so important?
Yeah, it's like because the liver is the body's processing hub for all this nutrition. So the first step after take-up of nutrients is the liver to give a check on it, to process it. That's just in general. So the liver processes sugar, it processes fats, it processes toxins, all just to check either to improve the body's health, but also to defend from actual harms to the body's health. So this is all things which are done by the liver. And like a few years ago, I learned that over 1,500 tasks are be done by the liver. But I think currently this will be a lot more than a few years ago. So and also it produces bile, by the way, so which is also helpful through processing fats. And what's really important to realize is that when the liver is working well, all these processes work together seamlessly. But when the liver is overloaded, and it is quite often happening in the sense when you get too much bad nutrients, too much fats, too much sugars, the liver gets overloaded and will try to compensate that by storing all these excess energies. And this will be done via storage of fat, which can lead to fat accumulation, which can eventually lead to MASL and even MASH or MASH fibrosis. And what's really important to realize is that this can work together with all the liver diseases. So if you already have a bit of damaged liver, excess nutrients or excess damageable nutrients can cooperate in a bad sense with these other liver diseases. So it's important for everyone, not people with just MASL or MASH.
Very good answer. You said that our liver can get inflamed by excess intake of these unhealthy foods. So I know that we will be touching also on the topic of how to clean the liver and keep it healthy. But we will get to that a little bit later. Tell me, maybe for somebody who is listening to us, are there any symptoms that someone can experience or feel that for them, for people will be like a sign, oh, something is wrong with my liver? Do we have such symptoms or?
The short answer, well, actually, it's a complex answer. The answer is yes and no, because there are signs that the liver is in need, but those are really aspecific. So there are no specific symptoms in the early stages of liver disease which give a sign that your liver is in trouble. So what we hear from patients which have liver disease is that they often sense a sort of fatigue or slight abdominal pain in the right upper corner. But there are like 30 diseases which can give abdominal pain in the right upper corner. So it's really hard to tell if a person has problems with the liver or just another disease. Specific symptoms only develop in stages of cirrhosis and especially advanced cirrhosis. So
which is very late.
It's very late in the process. So yeah, we call it a silent organ, which might just mean it's just a really strong organ because it starts to give signs when it's in really big trouble. And this can be dangerous. Yeah.
So we also know that liver can regenerate itself. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you just mentioned different stages. Can you just walk us through maybe to which is the last stage that we can really reverse the disease with nutrition? So
throughout the process of the liver getting damaged, it gets a bit more damaged over time. And all these small sorts of damage can still be repaired via nutrition or other sorts of treatment. But at some point, the architecture of the liver gets damaged, and when the architecture is damaged, it's not possible to reverse anymore. And this is called the stage of cirrhosis, when the scars have become too big to actually be repaired. So all stages before cirrhosis, nutrition can still have a positive effect. But within cirrhosis, it means that you can reverse the stage, but after cirrhosis, it is not possible to reverse the stage. But even within cirrhosis, it can still be possible to improve your liver health. So it's not that the liver is lost after cirrhosis, not at all, but you cannot just reverse back to a stage before cirrhosis. But good nutrition is important in every stage, in every patient.
Very important. That's a very strong statement. ELPA is also like an umbrella patient association, fighting and advocating for early diagnosis, for better awareness, because as you just said, you can do a lot in early stage. So the key is really to get people know about a certain disease or certain level of liver developing inflammation, so they can act. Okay, let's move forward. So correct me if I'm wrong, but we now see more and more also younger generation living with obesity, type 2 diabetes, which are the risk factors for liver problems.
Yeah.
So can you give us like a timeline how fast these symptoms, which you just mentioned that there are not a lot of them, what is the timeline of like increasing and developing further stage, going from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3? Is there some kind of a timeline, or is it really like a specific and connected to a specific person?
It's really aspecific. I can give you a sort of a timeline in the sense that it will take at least a few years, but in some patients it will take up to 60 years. So for an example, we know 90-year-olds who have a BMI of above 40, who drink alcohol, and have type 2 diabetes but do not have liver disease. I've also seen 12-year-olds who've been obese since they were born already, but they've developed advanced fibrosis. So it can happen within the span of about 12 years. It can also not happen within the lifespan of 90 years. So there are two factors which are important, just in general sense. So it's either the duration, of course, of the risk factors, so you need to have a long duration of risk factors, but mostly it's also just predisposition to the disease. So if you're at risk because of your genes, because of your family, we wouldn't know actually, but this is the most important risk factor. But I do know that if you do not have the other risk factors, like the obesity or type 2 diabetes, you will not develop the disease. So these two are both important, but the time span is really broad in that sense. So you have fast progressors, slow progressors, and non-progressors.
So I guess we can conclude this part with a message that take care of your health, be aware of your feelings, any pain in your body. Don't just say, oh, it's just a pain.
No.
There is usually the pain is the signal of a body that something is maybe not okay, so we should really be aware of these signals, right?
You should always listen to your body, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, Stan, we are moving forward. So very basic general questions. So what are what kind of foods should liver patients, especially MASH and MASLD patients, consume? What are the right foods, nutrients?
Yeah, so lean proteins, vegetables and fruits, whole grains, and healthy fats. So, and lean proteins, those are proteins. You always need proteins, especially in liver patients, but these are like chicken, fish, especially salmon is really good, by the way. Legumes, so any sorts of proteins which are not also saturated with a lot of fats, like red meat. Vegetables and fruits are, of course, really important because they have antioxidants, fibers, and lots of vitamins. Lean fats like oils, avocados, nuts are really important. So not saturated fat actually, and whole grains. So the complex carbs are really important. So quite often we have all these broken down sorts of carbs like white bread, but those are not good. So you need to go for the complex carbs like quinoa, brown rice, and oats.
What about the foods and drinks to avoid?
Yeah, I've touched on that already a bit, but the whole umbrella above the foods that you should not eat are the processed foods. And the processed foods are, in several groups are really important. So the sugary beverages are a really harmful group in this sense. Soda, sweetened teas, energy drinks, and these all contain fructose, and we'll talk about more about that later, I think. Refined carbs, so everything with bread and pastries, with white bread and pastries especially, they really spike your blood sugar, and this is harmful, especially in the sense of mesothelioma mash. And excess salt, and this excess salt is especially important for the later stages of liver disease, so not especially in the earlier stages. It is important in the sense that it will, a bit of complicated, but it will affect your blood pressure, which can also influence your liver disease. But excess salts are especially harmful for the ones with cirrhosis, for which it's really important to have a balanced sort of fluid retention.
So let's now focus on those sugary beverages.
Mm-hmm.
We see them everywhere.
Yeah.
They are promoted everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us something more about this.
Yeah, it's bad. Now, the problem with these sugary beverages are several problems, especially the fact that they contain a lot of sugar. And liquid sugar is something which does not influence your satiety level. So if you drink a liter of cola, you don't feel any satiety, while you just eaten a lot of calories. Second problem is that sugary beverages are all filled with fructose, and fructose is a really popular sugar to add in all sorts of meals because it's cheap. But it's also the worst because it's really easily metabolized by the liver. There is no complex pathway for it. It's directly metabolized into fat. So fructose has excessively extra harmful effect on the liver compared to other sorts of sugar.
But as you mentioned, fructose is indeed in these sugary beverages.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question is, because tackling nutrition and just trying to, from Monday to Tuesday, change the nutrition is probably very difficult and unrealistic, right? So I guess my question is, do you think that the first step should be cutting the sugary beverages, or is it very
I think
personalized?
I think the answer both true, because every step you take should be personalized. So whatever is the easiest step for someone, they should take that step, because you want to start with easy steps first to build some confidence, I think. But it's important to realize that sugary beverages, you don't need them. You need to eat food, and of course it's sometimes good to eat a little bit of fat because you need to reach satiety. But sugary beverages don't make you reach satiety, so you don't need it in everyday life. The problem is that they're really addictive, so it might be a hard step for people. But if you can take this step, it can be a really important one.
Can you say something on the current guidelines for MASLD and MASH? So the aim there is to reduce weight loss by 7 to 10%.
Yeah.
By losing weight. I'm now focusing on a question like, is calorie a calorie? How long does this process take? These are all very practical questions from patients. Or for example, from your practice, how are you advising them how to jump on this train and start? What would be your suggestion?
The first step, I'd say, is to consult someone who knows a lot about dietary restrictions. So you need to go to someone who can help you and to change your whole structure of diet, I think. first question is calorie a calorie? The answer is no. To explain this, it's really difficult, I think. But there are foods who take more energy to metabolize while they have the same amount of calories. So, and these are most often foods which are unprocessed. So I'd say that calories from unprocessed foods are better than calories from processed foods because they are really different in the sense of how they are metabolized. So whatever advice I give to my patients, we often say they have to stick to the Mediterranean diet, and I don't mean the pizza and the meats, but mostly the olive oils, the fish, the legumes. Those are the important ones.
So does this happen often that when you say Mediterranean diet, people think of pizza?
The first thing they think about is pizza.
So it's not about pizza; it's about the Mediterranean diet.
Yeah.
Okay.
But at least that's for in the Netherlands. It will be in any other place in Europe, but in the Netherlands, people think of pizza, and Spanish meat and gyros.
Stan, what about the intermittent fasting? This is a catchy, shiny title on a lot of
it really is
websites and articles.
Yeah. We don't know exactly why it works, but it does work. Although there is still a lot of discussion about which sorts of intermittent fasting are best. But in general sense, what we know from intermittent fasting is that all sorts of intermittent fasting have beneficial effects on your liver health. What we do know from latest research is that it's most important to do not eat as many times a day. So keep it to 2, 3, perhaps 4 times a day max. And what I've also learned is that you need to eat as early as possible in the day, except when you skip the whole breakfast part. But especially if you try to eat for a few times a day and then stop for another days, eat as early as possible. Do not eat when the sun has gone down.
But let's maybe firstly define intermittent fasting. So I know that there are a lot of different explanations. Sometimes intermittent fasting means that you have different windows when you consume food and when you don't consume food. And my understanding is that the main aim is to leave actually the time for liver to cleanse and to not to throw and consume all the things that we eat and drink. So is this the main mechanism of intermittent fasting, or is there something more? Probably more complex. I know it's very, very easy to understand.
It might be
language.
More. It might be more. It might also just be your circadian rhythm, so that your body is used to sleep during night and be awake during day, and that those processes are also aligned. So we do not know exactly how this still works, but we do know from several studies that eating on the wrong moments of day can affect the actual metabolization of these nutrients. But this is the only thing I can say about it, because it's so complex and we still do not have all the answers. So there's still a lot of discussion about it. So the general sense is that there are multiple processes which can influence or which are thought to have an effect on intermittent, or in the sense of intermittent fasting, but we do not know yet which ones are the most important and which ones we can actually focus on in practice. But we've seen that several variants of intermittent fasting all work well. So stop eating for 2 days, stop eating in the mornings. They all work okay-ish, but we do not know which one's best.
So bottom of the line, we are waiting for more detailed research to really be able to give instructions to patients.
Definitely. And it's also really about what works for someone, right? So not everyone will be able to do not eat for a whole day or be restricted to 500 calories for a whole day. So it really differs per person, I think.
What about hydration? Water intake, should we put something into the water, like lemon water, or walk us through?
I think the most important thing
is... Do we have to drink water?
Yeah, we do need to drink water. I think the most important thing is to drink water instead of sugary beverages, like I said earlier, but hydration is really important. So hydration is necessary to keep your organs flooded, to detoxify the body, to process nutrients, eliminate waste. So the general advice is to drink about 8 to 10 cups a day. But I think this mostly goes for the elderly, or at least persons, maybe I'll shame someone, but at least above 60 years, because they'll lose their sense of thirst. So in younger generations, if they are thirsty, they should drink. And if you drink when you're thirsty, you automatically drink enough in most moments. But people often ignore their thirst, and you should not do that. But you do not necessarily need to keep a bottle of water next to you and keep drinking throughout the whole day, because you can just trust your kidneys and your thirst level to work properly if you do not have any problems with your brain or your kidneys. But it's mostly important for the people above 60 years who lose their sense of thirst.
What about people with advanced liver disease?
Yeah, there it's more...
Anything more specific?
Yeah, there it's more complicated, because these people have a really tightly balanced system in the sense of water. They often develop water accumulation in the belly because the liver isn't able to... lots of water goes through the liver. About 25% of the blood goes through the liver. And if your liver gets damaged, this will give a certain barrier for these water flow. So you'll accumulate water in the belly because your liver isn't able to process all these sorts of water. In these patients, it's really important to keep your water levels as tightly regulated as possible. And this is especially done by not focusing on your water intake, but focusing on your salt intake. People are often restricted to only 2 grams a day, and in a general sense, there's a large chance that any of you will eat about 4 or 5 times more than the 2 grams. So whenever you reach the stage of cirrhosis, where this process can start to happen, this can be a big burden on people to eat less salt and focus on their water intake.
What about drinks like coffee, green tea? Let's touch also on these.
Yeah.
Can we equalize it with like water intake, or?
I wouldn't say equalize it, because if you drink 2 liters of coffee a day, this isn't healthy. But the fun thing is that there are some signs that coffee and tea, especially green herbal teas, might be beneficial for your liver health. But so the advice could be that you drink 2 cups of coffee or 2 cups of tea a day, and this might be beneficial for your liver, but those results are not that firm yet. So of course, if you want to focus on your liver health, it can be important to drink a few cups of coffee or tea a day, but it will not make the change if you do not make other changes to your health.
So thank you, Stan. These are very, very helpful advices. Let's move forward to alcohol intake.
Yeah. Big elephant in the room.
Yes, huge. We actually don't have time to go very deep, but tell us more. Yeah. Alcohol, yes, no. Why yes, why no?
Alcohol is the most significant liver threat to the liver, which you have in your own hands, exactly. So even in small amounts, the alcohol can damage the liver, and this is because alcohol is metabolized earlier than all other sorts of nutrients. Nutrients, exactly. So if you drink alcohol, the liver will prioritize the metabolism of alcohol above fats and other sorts of nutrients. So all these other nutrients will be stored in the liver in the sense of fat. So, and it's not, of course, just the metabolism which is important, but alcohol creates lots of toxic byproducts which can actually damage liver cells and will accelerate the process of, for instance, method or MASH. So we know that people who already had steatosis because of obesity or diabetes, but will drink alcohol on top of that, they will have an extra chance to damage the liver. So we call this a supra-additive effect. So that 2 diseases working together to damage the liver. And what's actually interesting, there might be a biological reason for the fact that alcohol is so easily metabolized, and that it is actually a quite easy source for energy. So in the older days, animals would profit for being able to consume alcohol, but that's because they will mostly just consume fermentized fruits, which don't contain that much alcohol. But we drink too much. That's why it's a problem.
What about individuals in remission or with no fibrosis?
Yeah, it depends. If you're in remission, of course, which actually means that you do not have that much chance to damage your liver, but alcohol is actually a threat to everyone, even in small amounts. The question is how much of a threat it is if you just consume a small glass in every few days or so. But it really differs per person, but I think the most important message is that even moderate drinking can be harmful to people, and especially if you already had liver disease, it can also reignite an existing liver disease, reignite old steatohepatitis. So the best answer is to just abstain from drinking, but to be honest, I also enjoy a glass of wine from time to time. But be mindful about it.
So we spoke about food, we spoke about sugary beverages, alcohol. Since you are actually working with patients, where do you see they struggle the most? What is like the core thing that, for example, do you have some tips and tricks that you are advising them to follow the right nutrition, the right diet, how to incorporate better, healthier choices when it comes to this topic? Very general, I don't know, maybe from your practice. I don't know if you have any like a good example or an example that people are really struggling with that can maybe help the audience.
Yeah, let me think about it. I think alcohol is, of course, a really addictive substance. So if people suffer from addiction, and this is quite often something which is printed in their DNA, so some people are really more prone to addiction than others, they really can struggle with cutting down toxic substances. Not just talking about alcohol, but also sugary beverages, for instance. These can be really problematic. I think people struggle the most with is cutting back their calorie intake, apart from alcohol. So what you really see is that if people want to cut back the calorie intake to lose weight, they can do it for several months, maybe a year, but if they do not receive the right amount of guidance, they'll just slip back quite often. People know the yo-yo effect. It's really hard to really abstain for several years from eating too much calories. This is the thing I see people struggle with the most, and I think the best advice I can give them as a physician is to go through these programs like the combined lifestyle interventions, because we really know that getting guidance and especially doing things in groups will help people to support each other. But it's really hard. It really is hard.
Would you say that we need more of these supportive groups on a local level, also, I don't know, national level? What do you think that could be really beneficial?
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the big problems is that we only give these guidance, often in census studies, for about a year or maybe 2 years, and then we stop. And then people often fall back in their old ways, because if it's at least for in the sense of obesity is a relapsing disease. Your whole body's homeostasis has been adjusted, so it's really hard for people to keep on with the healthy habits, because the body is still crying out to them for food, for more intake. So I think the most important thing we might want to do in the future is not just supply people with more of these programs, but also in prolonged setting. I'm not sure if this has been researched before, how well it would perform if you do it for several years. It would be, of course, really expensive, but I think this is the answer in the future if you want to move away from the use of medications instead of for the treatment of obesity or liver diseases.
But for this topic, like the change of behavior, we will have also another session. So if you are interested to learn more about that, follow also that series.
Yeah.
But Stan, thank you very much for being with us today.
Mm-hmm.
I would say also good luck with your PhD.
Yeah, thanks
we
so
are
much.
waiting for the results.
Yeah.
And have a safe trip back.
Yeah, thank you so much.
See you soon. Thank you for being with us, and goodbye.